I have in the past posted a couple videos of the peacock swirl pattern soap. And in making that, you make a striped batter and then draw some sort of a combing device through it, after which you make the back and forth swirls to give the peacock tail look. Well, if you just stop at the combing step, then you got a nonpareil pattern, and that's what I'm going to do today, using natural clay colorants with a little bit of woad to enhance the blue. Here's my recipe calculated on soapcalc.net. My mold technically holds a 68-ounce recipe, but I'm only making 64 ounces because I've discovered if you try to drag a comb through somewhat thickened soap, the batter tends to pile up in front of the comb unless you go really slow, and it can run over the edge. So to help prevent that, I'm using a slightly smaller recipe today. I'm using castor oil, coconut oil, lard, and sunflower oil. That should be a fairly slow-moving recipe and make a nice quality soap. As I often do, I'm adding some sugar and some sodium lactate. The sugar will help with the sudsiness and also slow down the thickening slightly. Sodium lactate will ultimately make a slightly harder bar, easier to peel the mold wrapper away. And then for fragrance, I'm using Ceylon black tea fragrance oil from Oregon Trail Soap Supply. This is a really delicious scent. It doesn't discolor. It does hold up well. It doesn't accelerate significantly, if at all. So I like using it in a soap like this. For colors, as I've said, I'm using mainly natural clays. For deep red, Australian red reef clay. For pink, French rose kaolin clay. For orange, I'm using a mixture of French red clay, which is kind of a reddish orange, with some Brazilian gold clay. For yellow, just Brazilian gold clay. For green, French green clay. For blue, Cambrian blue clay, which is a very light blue, and so to darken that, I'm using some woad powder with it. And then for purple, Brazilian purple clay. My oils are at 108 degrees Fahrenheit. My lye water is at 112. The oils already have the fragrance in them, and the lye water has sugar and sodium lactate in it. I have prehydrated my clays with about a tablespoon of water in each, except the French green. I used a little more water simply because it's harder to get it to become non-lumpy. And then the Cambrian blue with the woad, since woad is not water soluble or miscible, I've added a little bit of almond oil to that, maybe 2 teaspoons, just to get the woad powder wet. As usual, I will put links down below with different sections, so you can skip ahead if you don't want to watch the whole mixing process. And some of this, because it's a very slow recipe, it may take quite a long time to thicken up, and so I may also speed up or edit out certain parts of the mixing process. This is at a good emulsion, so I am going to distribute it now to the colors. So I'm ending up with a little more than 1.5 cups of batter for each color. I'll chip the orange just a little bit, but there's not going to be much difference in the volume of these different colors. Now, I'll mix these. That's probably going to take quite a while with this slow recipe. So I will edit that out. I'll move the camera so you can see when it's ready to pour over the mold. These are not really a trace, but there's a little bit of viscosity there, so hopefully the colors will stay more or less separated from each other. It needs to stay pretty liquid for a while here. And deep in the soap, I don't really care if there is some blending of colors. It's really the top that I want to be nice, crisp lines. I would say this is a light trace now. So I'm going to try to pour it rather quickly. Now, I would like to have one set of colors over each row of bars. And this mold is 3 bars wide. really getting a little thicker than I would like it. And I'm not going to use the last bit out of each color. I'll put that on a different mold for a small soap. I've missed one. I missed green. I may regret doing this, but I'm going to do the pink not in those lines. Now, I'll run the comb through it. I like that. I think that's exactly what I wanted it to do. This is the slab of soap when it's about 24 hours old. After I finished it, the last part of the video, I put it in an oven at 170 Fahrenheit, 77 Celsius for several hours and then let it cool naturally. So this is a day later, and you can see that it has these little white crystalline things on the surface. It's not typical soda ash, but I'm assuming it is something similar. There's a little closer view. And because this mold has the miter cuts in the sides of the wood, you can cut the bars while they're still in the mold, and that gives 15 bars. Once I took it out of the mold and peeled away the paper, this is the bottom side of the loaf. Also kind of an interesting pattern. These are top sides after a bit of shaving to take away that rough surface. And then these are bottoms, also with just a bit shaved away, and sides. And then cut ends. I like that look. As I said when I was pouring it, I might regret putting that pink stripe in a different direction. And I really kind of do wish that wasn't there. I don't think it adds to the pattern. I don't dislike it, but I would just assume that would not have been there.